All right, we're super excited here tonight. We've got a fellow Canadian, fellow podcaster, Zen athlete, Matt Belair. We've been connected somehow through like listeners and your trip to Egypt, and now looking into your work and your podcast. I'm just super excited to talk to you. Thanks for coming on, Matt.
Yeah, fellas, nice to meet you, man. Thanks for having me.
I mean, it's just fascinating how a lot of our topics overlap, even though you're more of like the super athlete, the Zen guy, but a lot of that stuff overlaps with the stuff that we talk about and the guests that we've had on. I mean, you just had Michael Tellinger on, you were in Egypt and having this amazing experience, and we had Jamie Janover on before, and you were there with the Resonance Academy. And listeners have been emailing us about, more people that we should have on about that specific trip. And now here you are. So I don't even know where to start, because we could get into your background a little bit, or we could just jump right into Egypt. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah. Well, I'll just make a comment on just the work. For me, doing the sports side of things, it was really about just seeing what's possible for myself, right? And in exploring yourself, you explore consciousness and reality.
Yeah.
And so when you do that, that leads into exploring, right? And so, the guests that we have on, like I explore myself through meditation and martial arts and training and then actually going to the places, and so, part of my training was with Shaolin monks in China, because I wanted to know if what they did was for real, breaking stone and all that kind of stuff, and go to the space.
Right.
And so that's what Egypt was like, was getting to the bottom of it. Watching documentaries is one thing, reading books is one thing, and they're all great, but getting into it with the people that know their shit is how you can figure it out. Like, direct experience is all and you barely even know that, because reality is tricky through the five senses, right? So hopefully you're taking it in as it exists. So
how did you start into this journey? Like, you spent a lot of years snowboarding. Like, obviously you're a pretty top athlete, and then you transitioned into taking that to the next level through like spiritual work and learning Zen type stuff. Like, can you talk about that a bit?
Yeah. So for me, like the beginning was, I was just made like this. That's the easiest way I put it. When I was 4, I was watching every martial arts video I could find and doing all that kind of stuff. And I was just curious what I was capable of. And I believed, what I was watching. I believed that these monks could do this. And I started researching superhumans and just the most extraordinary human beings. And I always felt intuitive. I always felt that there was so much more than just the physical reality. Mm-hmm. So, I'm doing meditation when I'm a kid, trying to figure that out. And then in my teens, I'm looking into astral projection, lucid dreaming, anything around consciousness. But mostly it started from being a martial artist, because part of that discipline is going within. And I had that really early. This is a part of it. It is quieting your mind, going within. And so Zen philosophy I was reading in my teens as well, enlightenment, anything to expand my consciousness. But I was always an athlete. So I was always a martial artist. Really great skateboarder when I was, in my teens. That's my one regret, was quitting, because I was so good at it, but none of my friends wanted to skate anymore. So I'd rather hang out with them than by myself. Then I went into snowboarding, and it was always a natural progression, still reading, still experimenting, but always just trying to express myself in things that I enjoyed. And that turned out to be skateboarding, snowboarding, martial arts, travel, and things like that. So, it was always natural. It was always like one motion, it was spirituality, consciousness, self-development, peak performance, and then like, what the fuck is going on the planet? I don't know if we can swear. Or I should swear.
No, go for it, buddy.
Okay, cool. What the fuck is going on? Nobody's asking any questions. Like, what the actual flying F-bomb is going on? Nobody's like curious. Like, what I'm being fed is horseshit. And, when I was 15, 16, I was like, how do we still have war? So that opened up the rabbit hole of conspiracy theory. And then I'm like, hey guys, like, did you know this? And nobody gave a shit. And I was like, does nobody care? Because like the one story I'm being fed is horseshit, and this one makes a lot more sense, but people think I'm a lunatic. Yeah. And I'm like, this is very interesting. And so then you keep going down the rabbit hole, and all of a sudden you're in Egypt in a tomb in the center doing some sort of like activation
Wow.
And your just mind is like, even though like I've done deep meditation, popped out of the body, you know, I can lucid dream, I can do all that kind of fun stuff, then ayahuasca. But when you're in it, even though it's like 3D physical reality, it's still hard to believe that it's happening. And so part of the training as like a martial artist and an athlete is to be present.
Yeah.
So I'm like, just be present in this. You are actually in the middle of the Great Pyramid, doing an activation. Like,
don't overthink
insane.
it. Don't overthink it. You know, I'm here. You can overthink yourself. Think yourself right out of the moment.
Yes, exactly. So that's what I felt in Egypt is really powerful. That place is something else. Like, you know, being in it is fascinating. So I don't know if you have any specific listener questions on that trip, but I can give you my interpretation.
Let's just get into the Egypt thing right now then. So we have the Resonance Academy. That's what's his name's I'm just drawing a blank there. Nassim Harriman. Then I mean, I saw a lecture of his in Calgary for 4 hours. There was supposed to be a panel afterwards, and he just kept rolling with it, and everybody was just enthralled for hours. So I mean, he's mind blowing. So to go to Egypt with a bunch of really cool people, open-minded, interesting people, and learn like with that academy must have been an amazing experience.
Yeah, man, it was absolutely tremendous. And how I had the opportunity to go was he came through Sedona, and I watched him speak, and he was talking about the documentary and how he wanted some help marketing it. And I was like, I'll help you market it. You know, you're doing it. Why not? Like, I know a thing or two about marketing. And got connected to Chris Almeida, who you should check out the ARC crystals. It's their first technology coming out. But I was aware of his work from back in the day, trying to figure out what was going on. And he had an 8-hour video, and I started it. I was like, I can't watch 8 hours of this. Literally 8 hours later, I'm done watching the video. I just like, oh my God, I was in the Whistler days. I just couldn't shut it off. So we're going there, and we're in Egypt with literally ranked some of the smartest people on the planet. You've got one of our guides, Youssef, should remember his last name, but his dad founded Kemetology, which is Egyptology. So we've got the most legit guides you could imagine, and we're getting lectures and tours, and you know, these Egyptologists and geologists and everything giving their story. They gave us like, this is the official story, and this is what we have, man. And so some of this is super unbelievable for sure. And some of it I'm not allowed to say, so I got to be careful with what I do share. But what I can share a few things.
Okay.
We'll just go into one of the most unbelievable things that I heard on the trip. So one of the guides, wish I could remember his name. I could find him on Facebook, but he's talking about how him and his friends were doing digs, you know, and how there's this experience. Yeah, and I actually shouldn't name his name, but apparently there's a story, and this could be fiction or nonfiction. And he says that they found a box or something, and they open up this box, and there's these little tiny balls, these little like jelly type balls, right? So they pick up the balls, and it's just him and like two other people that had found this box or whatever when they did this dig. And I don't know how kosher this dig was. I think it was okay, but you know, I think it was okay. It was sanctioned dig. And anyway, he says that his friend sneezed, of all things, his friend sneezes and blows these balls on the ground, and they think like, oh my God, like that was the most tragic thing you could have possibly done. Like, what are you doing? And apparently they just morphed back into, and they all came together like some sort of magnetic field. And then he said the weirdest thing though was when he had them by a mirror, and there was no reflection on them. And usually, like, you know, I've done, you know, and I realize if you're just listening to this, and I'm sure your audience is totally fine, but I'm really good at telling when somebody's lying to my face. You don't just make up a random story like that. And that's why these guides were super stoked to have us there, because we're people that are fine with ancient civilizations, the possibility of ETs, you know, or coming back in time. But you know, if we progress linearly, right? So we have, you know, horses, and then we have a car, and then we have the industrial age, and then we have the technological age. Well, how do you explain 13,000 years? Or, well, the official story is 4.
Yeah.
But if you look at Robert Schoch's work and everybody there that was a pretty intelligent human was like, it's not.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. It's like it's closer to 13,000. It's like it had to be some sort of advanced race because you have 200-ton laser cut stones, and it's built on a shelf. And I didn't realize that you guys probably already know this, but there's an outer casing shell, so it's supposed to be smooth. What we see is the inner shell. They're a casing shell. So I learned, and a tremendous amount. And from a physical perspective, you could sit and meditate, on the rock, and my body would literally just like
pulse?
Really get the energy. Yeah, it would pulse. But I've done a lot of meditation in my life, and as of I would say the last couple of years this started happening. But I meditate like an hour a day for I'd say 10 months last year. I have been doing less. I've been doing more breath work now.
Yeah.
But in that hour of meditation, my body would start to just kind of wiggle with energy, just so it's pulsing back and forth.
Yeah.
So, you can tune in a little bit, and you don't know what it is, but it's a very fascinating place if you look into it.
Yeah, for sure. I always wonder what those pyramids look like with the capstone and with the smooth sides and the different, the different lights or whatever they had back then. I mean, it was probably a sight to see. And I mean, we talk about that too, and all these ancient civilizations. And I think we were way more advanced than anybody realizes back then, even before the Ice Age, probably.
Definitely before the Ice Age.
Yeah.
Seems to be. I don't know, it depends on the advanced. Well,
no, advanced, it doesn't mean technologically. It could be, or maybe there's some technological, but maybe not electricity, but maybe some other static electricity. I mean, we had a guy
batteries. Well, talking about batteries.
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of different ways to do things. So were you in the Great Pyramid then? I spent I was there in 1991. Spent some time in there, but I was too young, and I didn't have the same reverence that I should have. I wish I would have spent some time meditating in there. I saw it, but I didn't really hold that space, that I should have. I wish I would have been able to go in there and really sort of, I don't know, just be in a different state,
over.
You're not you're not allowed to meditate, apparently. It's like, what are the rules? It's ridiculous.
Oh, wow.
So, but we actually got to go in all 3 pyramids.
Right.
That hasn't been allowed forever, I guess. I guess nobody's ever been allowed to do that. So we got to go in all 3. And I was the last group with Nassim. And we had, our superpower necklaces on too, which the science. So anybody out there, check out arccrystals.com, because it's like his leading science. It's the first product they've made, and they've done tests on, and all the research, not all of it, but some of the research is on their website right now. And they're doing tests with charging the water that they give to plants, and the plants are growing 200 to 400 times bigger, faster. Look for the exact stats. I don't know, but it's ridiculous, whatever it is. And it's resistant to chemicals. And I had William Brown on my podcast, who's a biophysicist, and I got a good chance to talk to him. And we went in deep about the crystals and his research and what he's doing. And he's like, these things are fantastic. He's like, I can't even release what I'm getting on the human body yet with what this does as far as coherence fields. But let's just say they're pretty freaking powerful.
So what's the difference between these crystals and your normal quartz crystal or something? Is this man-made, or is it modified or something, or?
So as I understand it, so I definitely don't want to represent their sales force, but they're grown in Japan, I believe. So they grow them from Japan. And the special thing is, whatever this freaking device they have in California is some sort of 5D super device. He explained it in Sedona too. And all I can say is, after 30 minutes, 40 minutes of him going on about this machine, is science. I don't know what he said.
Yeah.
But it just does not look like they're messing around. And, when you talk to William Brown and Nassim lectures about it, that whatever it does, it essentially holds, because crystals now can hold thought. And one of the people, actually, as a relevant side note, I'm friends with Walber Pinto, who was mentored by Marcel Vogel. You guys know who Vogel is?
Yeah, Vogel, the crystal dude.
Yeah. So Vogel he apprenticed a lot of people, but he actually gave this man, Walber Pinto, who will be coming out of the woodwork soon, hopefully, all of his research. And Walber is consistently on the phone telling me stuff that people would think you're an insane person if you heard somebody say these things. But some of the basic stuff is that crystals can hold thought. Crystals can charge water. You can amplify your thought and healing through crystal. So the Vogel crystals, the 144 and cut into sacred geometry, now he has new cuts with them. And so it's essentially just using it as, I don't know, like in the same way that a flashlight amplifies your eyes in the night, right? It's a tool, so it can amplify your thoughts. Might be the electric. Dr. Joe Dispenza says your thoughts are the electrical charge to the quantum field, and your emotions are the magnetic charge. And he's, breaking the habit of being yourself, and you are the placebo. And he has the leading science of basically, this is the way I summarize it. He says, hey, meditate on health if you are sick. And if you do it for long enough, you'll cure yourself. And lo and behold, people are curing themselves of terminal illnesses, cancer, all this stuff. And he's measuring it in these workshops. And he has Kundalini experiences on EEG scan and spontaneous healings on EEG scan. And people always know when it happens. Yeah. And it's just continuously going in that state. So for me, doing sports psychology and getting better at sport and peak performance and being the best athlete possible, that has nothing on, that's like baby steps to where I want to go. I want to be able to, just, go way beyond that.
Levitate. So it is amazing about the crystals because, we were going out for, we were looking for UFOs one night in the C-SETI group, and I met this guy. He was an old gray-haired scientist who used to program crystals for NASA and stuff, right? These things have been in the scientific community. They've been programming these crystals for the space program for, how long, but that doesn't really make it as an acceptable part of our culture. Crystals are looked at as, woohoo and all this. And now we're finding out from these guys.
Like crystals as hard drives? Is that what we're talking about here, essentially?
Well, I think so, yeah. But he's talking about programming it with thoughts, and it can, amplify your energy and all this. So now they're using this machine to do something to the crystals that increases the frequency in water and all this kind of stuff, I guess, is the gist.
Yeah, so I would imagine as creating a coherent field. And I think that arccrystals.com, I've been talking to Chris Almeida, who's doing the marketing on it. They're going to release a lot of their papers and their claims, right? Because they want to, they want it to be scientific, right? So they want to keep it super chill. But I am all just, I like to get crazy. But as I understand it, it creates a field, right? Just a measurable field that can charge water. The same thing like Walber Pinto was telling me that when he has a crystal in his hand and he does healing, he can heal people from a distance. And he said, I had this person with this serious injury gone, just using the crystal to amplify my intention. He even shows me pictures of him. Now they're shitty quality, and it does. He's I don't know. He's a scientist, but he shows me bent quarters and coins, and he tells me that he bent them with his mind. And I don't think he's kidding. You know what I mean? I definitely don't think he's kidding. One real thing, for people who find this to be a stretch, which, be skeptical, sure, but I like to check it out. Master Go in China, he could break stone like an inch thick with 2 fingers. He could break a thicker piece over his head. And moving chi, life force, into a direct spot. So that's what Walber's doing, and he has the crystal.
Right.
And then Nassim Haramein doesn't talk about this, but it's one thing I'm allowed to say, I think. But I think he's said it a few times. He was a breatharian, so he didn't eat. I won't say for how long, but he has the ability not to eat. And I know other people who can do that too.
Who is? Nassim is, or the other guy is? Who's a breatharian?
Nassim was for a bit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, for a bit. I didn't know that. So he said that in his lectures. He also said that at Burning Man, and said some other things at Burning Man no one was allowed to say. But I think the breatharian thing is fine, because that's surprising to people can't wrap their head around that. They say, no, you're going to die. Right. And now I have people on Facebook. There's breatharian groups out there. Wim Hof is doing things that everybody thinks not possible. It's like, you'll die if you go in cold this long. He's like, all right.
Well, he'll climb Mount Everest in his shorts and do all kinds of stuff. Yep. I mean,
do what he wants.
and this fasting is amazing too, right? There's all these science and books coming out on fasting, so it's not that much of a stretch that going without food is, you know, I mean, maybe we were supposed to go long periods without food, and we're not supposed to eat 3 fucking huge meals a day. I mean, it's ridiculous.
I don't eat 3 huge meals a day.
I know, you're ahead of the curve there, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just opening up to possibility rather than shutting it down because of something that's outside of you. Like, you know, people would tell me when I was, you know, in Egypt, they're like, oh, it was built by slaves. And I'm like, I think that if you were here in this group of scientists, astrophysicists, geologists, engineers, you're not going to stand up and present your theory in front of these people because you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Now, if you did thousands of hours of research and you came to that conclusion, sure, share it.
Yeah.
No problem. I'll listen, right? But people just they when they're at a level, they just want to tell you what that level is for them, and that's the possibility. And for me, you know, as long as I open up and say, okay, cool, present me the evidence, show me how. How. You know, lay it on me, and then you can tell when somebody either knows their crap or doesn't. So, you know, just open up to those possibilities.
Yeah. So did you have any personal experiences in Egypt during this trip that, you know, something that you hadn't had before or something interesting that you weren't expecting?
So,
or do you want to keep going on about the crystals and the work, whatever you can say? I mean, I know, but so just so everybody knows as well, like I've been in contact with other people that were on that trip, and I've heard from our listeners, and our friends, Alan, I think it is. Alan, who's also told us like he can't say everything. Alan Neal, I think, is yeah. So,
Alan, yeah, he might have been the guy that says I should talk to you too.
Yeah, maybe that's where you heard as well. Yeah. So, anyways, but
Alan's awesome.
So he was like, you know, we can't. He was going to come on.
Green is Shakespeare, right?
Yeah, that's the Shakespeare guy. Yeah.
But he's into the fireplace.
Yeah, but he's also somehow connected to Matt here as well because there was an email with both of us in there. So there's multiple
that.
weird.
I caught that. Yeah, there's multiple levels of synchronicity at play as usual.
Yeah. So you know, he mentioned that a lot of this stuff can't be talked about as well. So.
Yeah. I'm just thinking how I can word because it is exciting stuff. What I can say for me is, from doing a lot of independent, and I'll just speak from my theory because even if you were there as a direct experience, what people actually thought was happening was different for every single person, depending on their own level of consciousness. And so from my level of consciousness, I would describe what I felt was happening and what I could observe, which would not necessarily match their experience. So that being said, from my experience, you know, I think that the sacred sites, there's over 200, you guys probably know, there are well over 200 documented on the planet. All of them are unexplainable. All of them is some sort of very advanced civilization with our species or something with technology that all the engineers that we were with are like these, you know, from the way they're built with how they switch different stones and the shapes and, you know, having Tellinger on and looking at his work, you know, he's somebody that I looked at his work and I've had him on the podcast and I've been able to speak to him personally. He shows how the sacred sites, you put them by a computer chip and they look the exact same. Wow. It's like, oh, shit. So from an aerial view, you look at a computer chip and all the sacred sites, it's the same shit. So, you know, my guess from everything that I observed and try to wrap my head around as a novice in these fields compared to these people was that they're big resonance devices. There's some sort of mass scale planetary device that can create an energy field. Yeah. And so if you go in with a group of people, just like the studies they show with a group of meditators in Chicago, I think it was Chicago, meditating on peace. Have you ever heard about that?
Yep.
Right, so they meditate on peace. The
crime rate fell and all that. Yeah,
the crime rate fell. Yeah, the was it? The mayor's like, yeah, sure, go for it. You nuts? This isn't going to work, and then it worked. He's like, holy shit. So you take that idea in a concentrated space, same idea in Burning Man and healing and group healings and things like that. So if you took a group of people with a direct intention into the pyramids, and we were allowed in all three with, technology that we're wearing that amplifies intention, ideally, you could potentially use that source to ascend your own consciousness and send a ripple. So, in my daily practice, I'm sending ripples of love and intention. In the end of my podcast, if you've heard one or two, I'm just like, take a moment, take a breath in, connect with your heart, send that ripple out. Because every time we come into coherence and resonance, we're sending that to all beings on the planet. And so for me, what I could specifically do, and I'm not the type that, I touch a crystal and I feel it and I'm like, oh, and I embellish. A lot of times I don't feel shit and I'm sad because I want to. I don't play it up, but I could, at different spots there, go in, touch the stones and just kind of tune into it. And I would get lightheaded and energy would pulse very strongly through my body. And there was another spot that they had there. They thought it was a healing space. There's these squares you stick your head in. And I don't know if Jamie talked about them, but you stick your head in this square and it's very distinct waves that you can feel. Not like, oh, you can kind of feel it like you're in it and you're thinking, how the heck is this happening?
Well, I've heard people talk about the sarcophaguses themselves having that sort of effect.
All of it is resonance based. It's all, the way that I see it too, on like the mass scale of like what is happening on the planet, from what I can deduce and all this freaking madness, is that we're moving to a faster vibration and a more coherent vibration. Yeah. And so this split is happening on the planet, and a higher vibration is love, is kindness, is cooperation, is caring. It's a very different vibration than fear and anger and all that stuff. And so when you're in these spaces, you can activate your own DNA, your own body, essentially your body's intelligence, your body's spacesuit. And you can also set the intention to try to activate and use these things for what they are, to activate your cell and amplify that signal. And so that's essentially what these crystals are doing. So with water, another really huge thing for people to, get a massive upgrade in their consciousness is the highest quality water you can find. And I'm constantly programming my water. And so now I do more of a meditation ceremony where I take the crystal and I have, my affirmations and what I'm sending out to the world, and I place it there because it gets charged. Yeah. And, like the Masaru
Emoto.
Masaru Emoto, his name, so it's challenging sometimes. Yeah. But I'll do that and I'll chuck it, and then I'll visualize that orb going into the water program. So what's happening is that with Walber Pinto, who will be coming out soon, and the Resonance Academy and the art crystals and the scientists that are on it, the information's out there, for us to get. It's just whether we're going to tune in, because we can't see it. Like, you can't see the microwave do its thing. We have no idea. We can't see cell phones. We can't see any of that.
Yeah.
So it's getting in tune to who and what we actually are, to our own abilities.
Yeah.
And so, so super, super fascinating. And, he didn't say we couldn't talk about this. Robert Grant. Do you guys know who that is?
Oh, I've heard the name.
No.
He's a big business guy. I just found out about the trip, and he did a presentation on it. So he didn't. I'm pretty sure this is clear.
That Massimu guy is the same guy from What the Bleep Do We Know, right?
No.
Who's he then?
Who's Nassim?
No, not Nassim. The guy you just said.
No, that's from What the Bleep. Yeah.
Masaru Emoto. Yeah. I confuse him with the guy from Iron Chef.
Yeah. So he's the guy that basically shows, water crystallizing your thoughts and your words, and word magic. And so, that was another really, really big upgrade, was words and the real meaning to the hieroglyphs. And so God as not being God is like, some sort of thing. They say it's more accurately described as nature.
Yeah.
God is nature, the spirit force and things like that. And, me being in, say, consciousness or spirituality space, God is a hot topic. I always write about kindness, and I'd say spiritual topics, but I never say God for whatever reason.
It's got the connotations, yeah.
Yeah, people lose their shit, and a couple people lost their shit. Or even made comments, but then it was good because it made me realize where they were at. And they're always telling you, there's some people put ownership on God. It's like putting ownership on nature. It's like, no, Santa Claus makes the birds fly and everything work. And if you don't worship this Santa Claus, then everything is going to go to hell. And I was like, well, the second you're doing that, you're distorted. God is in all things, and it's that maybe that higher force that's keeping our heart beating or whatever. It's nature. And that is such a pleasant way for me to hear it. It's like nature, spirit. It's wonderful, right?
Yeah.
Just everything is working as it should. And when you are of service to your environment, when you're looking out for the highest good of all concerned in the forest, things just work out a little bit easier than when you're trying to rob the beaver next door or the duck down the street. It just makes perfect sense.
Yeah, Alan mentioned that Robert Grant gave you guys a talk about downloading of math, and that's what it was all about.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So Robert Grant. All right. So
Math's awesome. My daughter just is loving math. I'm like, yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She'll like this. So I didn't know. Math is definitely not my strong suit. It was really hard to follow, but there was a mathematician behind me who I made friends with, which was great. So he's going on about how he's come to this conclusion and all his research, and he only had an hour, and he probably could have gone for like 8, and he's trying to summarize really, really quick. The base that I could only realize was he deduced it all to root math, and one of his companies and technologies and patents is finding and using root math to find health issues, I think, along those lines, something like that. But massive breakthroughs using this. So then he figured you take the root math and you plot it on a full circle, because right now for the mathematical constants, and you can look this up too with all the mathematical constants in the pyramid are in there. They're all, it's shown on how the pyramid works or whatever. But he's saying that from what he has discovered, the end result, which is the only thing I could kind of tune into, was that he believes we're going to get 3 new numbers. And I believe one of them was to represent a mathematical constant for gravity, time, and magnetism. Mm-hmm. And again, this is like my brain trying to figure out what had actually happened, but it was a lot. Yeah. So he has the paper, and I told him, I was like, dude, you got to publish this paper and just show it and let people take a peek at it. But I asked the friend behind me, I was like, I don't know what he just said, but to you're a mathematician. Did this make sense? And she's like, I'd have to look into it, but it's pretty sound. And what I could understand was deducing it to root math and then plotting it on a full circle. And he just showed how he'd worked up to these constants. And I seemed really, really confident. So if that is true, what I find interesting, and so I've gone through the Resonance Foundation, and I recommend everybody do that. The Resonance Science Foundation, it's such a tremendous course to do. And it really upgraded again. So I was new and super green to it. Jamie's been teaching about it for a while, and I'm still wrapping my head around it. But even as a straight up novice, you get so much value from it. And they show where the physics theories came from, why they work with the theories they work on, and how they're building off of that model. And one of the big problems that I see in traditional science and what's being promoted out there is there's obvious errors, and they're still working with these algorithms that have these huge glaring errors, and they show you them, and you would think that you would drop that. The problem is if you accept Nassim's work, you really F up all the stuff you were doing before.
Yeah, the whole paradigm changes.
The whole paradigm changes. And so that's what we're in right now, though. And I feel this from, a spiritual sense, kind of like, a yogi in the woods. I connect with nature. I connect with deep meditation. And now I'm coming out trying to learn the other side because it's just naturally been really interesting for me. But I've been to these states of consciousness that are not 3D at all. And I can do it on command if I want to do a breath technique, but I don't always want to do it. It's a high energy state. It's you don't want to stay there. It's not functioning. But when you activate it, it is a whole scale up. Mm-hmm. And so all of this stuff just makes perfect sense to me. Why would we not evolve to this point? Why do people want to stay at like a limit and not see where we could go? But they're not even barely understanding where we are. Yeah.
It's
like they're looking back. It's like, just give us 50 years with high quality education and food and meditation and all this stuff. Like, what's possible?
And
just
maybe we'll go to where they were 20,000 years ago or 13,000 years ago. I mean, that's the interesting thing. Maybe they were already there.
Yeah. So one of the other theories I heard was that we sent the pyramid back. I can't remember who told me this, but one of the theories that someone had told me, and there was talk about other people really getting heavy downloads from, galactic beings. Like, the one night after the pyramids, we saw just a bunch of lights go all across the pyramids. Some people that had never seen a UFO before were like, yeah, that's the clouds moving. I was like, yes, those ones are clouds moving. Yes, but that one is not. Like, and you could see this hole. And there's probably, like, when we left, I would say it was like a fleet. I've never seen so many move like that. And it definitely was, because I've been visited a few times by orbs and things. And it was just a bunch moving across the sky. And it was really, really profound, interesting stuff. So I knew a couple people there that were talking about really getting heavy downloads from beings and having these experiences, and basically the messages were, we're in it, like it's happening.
Right.
You guys are doing it. You're in this time on the planet, but it is happening. You're not, because even when you it's good that you have shows like this, because when you're by yourself and nobody believes you, and you just wonder after a while, with all the research you do and the experiences you have, is like, am I a lunatic? Everybody seems to think so. Like, I need to check with somebody just to make sure, because I could be. So, So,
oh yeah, and then we meet all these smart, intelligent, open-minded people that are also interested in it, and they're not dogmatic in their views. I mean, we've met this whole community of people that are like yourself, curious and interested in this, and it's great that you can actually take that and go physically, like you said, you have that direct experience with it.
Yeah. And, the podcast with me and explaining it is literally like, if I take a new person snowboarding, I don't know what is going on. Right. But everything that I learned was super sound. And what I could take away was that these places are super powerful, super sacred. And I watched a documentary on Gaia after, and, what's this guy's name? Is that Freddie something? Have you heard of Freddie? He's a crop circle guy. But he essentially said that the pyramids, just in their existence, is like this initiation, and it activates your DNA just by going there. And it's a 30, 40-minute documentary on Gaia, and it made perfect sense again. And because I could feel it in my body. So just by showing up and going to these sacred sites, they have the power to literally activate your DNA through vibration. And he showed, hieroglyphs and things like that. So, fascinating.
Did you climb into the box in there, into that like coffin box, the sarcophagus or whatever?
Climbed into all the boxes, man. So we had. So when I went in the last 3, we got to go in each one, and there's only 3 rooms, and we're all basically oming in this room.
Oh,
and it's
wow,
like something
really?
out of this world. Oh yeah, dude. It was so out of this world. I'm just thinking, if somebody was not new to this and they walked into that, they would just have no idea what was going on. If a spaceship showed up, or a galactic being, or Jesus Christ, or whoever showed up in that room, it would have not shocked me at all. I was just like, you come down the Great Hall, and the Great Hall it's amazing. Great is not a good enough word for it. You're like, oh my God. And then you're oming, and you're going into the box, and you have your own intention, and you have your crystal on, and you're just like, like ready to do this. And, and it was really interesting. And I went in all 3, right? So there's one in each of the pyramids. And so I saw some weird shit, nothing out of this world, but definitely people's bodies being activated, and then sounds and stuff.
Yeah.
Sounds
that weren't there, like weren't generated by you guys, kind of thing, or
no, it was them. It was the human being activated.
I see. Okay, yeah.
It looked like they got a full.
Like? Does it sound like a crack or a
crackle?
Whip? Okay.
What did it sound like?
Yeah. No, it was 2 of them. One of them sounded like communication. It sounded like they had a 20-second communication with something. It was gnarly. So I got to watch. I was holding space, you know what I mean, and doing, my thing, and just giving some chi and some, good vibes. So I watched everybody go in, and it was only a few people. But even I think subtly, you're going to get wherever your consciousness is at, right? Just like everybody's experience is just where their consciousness is with it, what is at, just like life, you know?
Yeah.
So really fascinating.
So your necklace is the art crystal is what you're talking about on your necklace?
Yeah. So it pops out. So I can put it up there. So this is the art crystal. Oh. And so it's housed. So the idea is you can take it out and you can charge your water with it. You can, I put it, when I meditate, I put it on my third eye now. And when I take it off, I can feel it actually buzzing. Like it's like this, it's just resonance and coherence. And so that's the idea with these, or even drinking water or doing something like exercising. You're putting your body into coherent vibrational state.
Yeah.
So this is assisting in that. And if you are a meditator and you do energy work and you do things like that, it's pretty obvious that you can feel this thing.
Yeah.
And so, I have it on pretty much all the time, and I'll meditate with it, and I'll charge my water with it, and I can 100% taste the difference. And from the people that I've had on my podcast lately, and from my own research, water's the best thing you can do to, get yourself natural well water, get yourself
restructured water. So have you got into all that? Because I'm obsessed by this water thing, and I'm just scratching the surface, but. It's in plastic. You don't want that in a 1970s plastic Tupperware jug.
This is
you got to put it in glass.
This is a 2010.
Pour it over some crystal.
This is a new Tupperware.
So that's high quality.
So have you?
This is high quality BPA.
So there's a whole bunch of different types of water now, and I mean, there's all these different ways to purify it and all this. So I've recently tried this John Ellis water. I don't know if you ever heard of that water. He's apparently it's the purest water out there, and he's got this technique of distilling it like 100 times over. So he's actually taken the deuterium like right out of it, and it's actually like the purest water there is apparently. So I just started.
Isn't water just better when it has the stuff in it?
Well, that's the thing.
Is this mineral water?
Yeah, that's the thing. It does lose its mineral and all, but it's got other benefits to it. So there's a whole like
space benefits.
It's pure water, buddy. Pure water.
Pure water.
So I'd love to know what you think about it one day, because so I've been thinking about that, like getting I have the Santivia water filter, and I'm thinking about restructuring it, pouring it through crystals, and getting it through the get a bit of sunlight or whatever. I mean, it is a fascinating topic, and it's but I don't know, like, if this stuff if it's distilled to the point where it's dead yet it's pure, does it need remineralizing and restructuring, or it's fascinating.
Sounds like trouble.
Yeah.
That's what I want to get I want to get like a glass, one of those water jug bottles for my thing.
Yeah.
And then I'll just buy a big ass funnel and I'll just dump my plastic ones in there, and then I could just
No, you don't want to even start with plastic.
There's plastic somewhere down the line. That's unavoidable. I'm not driving out to the mountains to bottle it myself, so it's not going to happen.
Actually, Canmore does have a spring.
I know. I see the people.
Okay. You see the people
lugging it down the mountain. But then you need like 50 glass jugs to make it worth it, or a few anyway. But anyway, is it just as good if I take it home? I take it out of my plastic jugs, dump it into the glass jug, then put it on the water cooler, and then put the crystals on top, and put like affirmations on the outside. The affirmations.
That'll help.
Stickers.
That'll help. What do you think?
Because I heard that it won't go through the plastic.
The affirmations won't go through the plastic?
Yeah, we have these little stickers, love.
But it won't go through the plastic, you don't think?
That's what my wife tells me.
I'd love to hear what Matt thinks.
That's what my wife tells me.
Well, she's my wife's no slouch.
Yeah, no, she's
got like a crystal ticket. She went to crystal school, and she's
crystal
like,
healing and stuff. Yeah,
she's like doing a course on her moon cycles and things like that. Like, she's pretty switched on for sure.
Yeah.
She's no slouch. She could probably outdo me.
Oh, for sure. In the new age, in that.
If it wasn't for my wife, my kid would probably be vaccinated. Jesus, could you imagine? God bless her.
Wow.
Yeah, we usually don't chit chat amongst each other so much. Sorry, Matt.
No, that was good. I loved it. It's nice to see the dynamic between you two. I can see how this show is going to be going a long time, man. It was very entertaining from this side.
Okay, good.
Yeah, no, I think water's super important. My 2 cents on right now how to max out your water, because I have done some research on this. So structured water is important.
Yeah.
Some people have different views on this. Some of it's like alkalized water.
Yeah.
Some of my well water friends that get proper well water from certain places, I'm all about well water. I think you can't really go wrong with a natural spring. That's money. Then if you were going for maxed version, you get an organite plate underneath it. If you got an art crystal, definitely use the art crystal, because that shit is
Organite.
That's like the next stuff.
Oh, I think
Organite.
I got some.
Yeah, you got some.
Organite plate,
That's that flat
put the
one,
water
right?
on the organite plate, crystal grid it, throw a word on there and a sacred symbol like a flower of life. And
So can I do that
your
on top
intention.
of the plastic jug? Or is the plastic just is that like a no, kill it?
Well, you can. If you're maxing it out, you can't be using plastic.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
It's like if you're,
It's like
Even with this John Ellis water.
You got to use glass.
Even with this John Ellis water, he said you don't dilute when you're diluting it in your, so you can put 10 drops of this water and dilute it into a big jug of, like, let's say Santivia alkaline water, but don't put it in plastic because it's so powerful it'll start take away the plastic.
Yeah, and I think we're going to get more research. I don't know what the best is yet, but I do know that Walber Pinto is working on structured water. It's one of his things, and I've heard of a lot of other people working on it too.
Yeah.
And his device sucks it out of the atmosphere and then creates clean water, and then he mineralizes it and structures it.
Oh wow, that's fascinating.
it's not like GMO.
No. It's all natural. So the big question for me on the water, the big question for me on the water is the guy who figured out the water thing back in now I'm gonna forget his name. He was working in nature, and he realized that the water thrives under cold and dark environments. So there's the contradiction between that and the new research that talks about energizing your water with sunlight. So that's the reconciliation that I can't really do it myself. Now I'm trying to remember the original guy. It was like back in the 1800s, I think a Russian guy or something that did all this.
Saying cold?
Yeah, talking about it being.
Well, I know the yogis are all about not having it cold because your body's at a certain temperature, so you don't want to drink cold water. That's their thing. Some of them, anyways. I've heard that.
Yeah.
I think sunlight's great, and I had this girl that's probably going to come on the podcast soon. She contacted me over water, and she's on this Appalachian Spring, and she's basically gone down the water rabbit hole really hard, and her delivery is intense right now, and she's an awesome lady. It's just like, hold on, it's a lot of information. Like, let's sift through this so I can kind of figure it out.
Yeah.
But one of the things she told me to do was to play the sound of the sun. Because I was like, what can I do right now? If I can't access your super spring water, what can I do? She's like, play the sound of the sun from NASA. So I have been doing that too.
Wow,
so now
interesting.
I do water. Yeah, I do water ceremony now.
What's the sun sound like?
There's a NASA. It's like a planet. I don't know. And I don't even know if it's the right sun or whatever. I'm just, hopefully YouTube is hooking me up. I don't know. I'll give it a shot though. And that's the thing. Like, I just test it, like I like to, I don't know, I go to the places and I test it, and then I know how it worked for me. So I've been testing it.
Is there like a simpler way to structure? Like, how can I structure my water?
Yeah, there is.
at
You can
home?
pour it over crystals. You can literally it's like mimicking a stream, like going down a stream. Like if you pour it over crystals and put it in the sun, or even I think like Himalayan salt blocks and stuff like that. Victor Schauberger is the guy I was thinking of. He was Austrian born.
Yes, I've heard that guy. Yeah. You can do that. Yeah, crystals is good, but you got to make sure you can get your wife in on this, that you got to cleanse your crystals, right, because they pick up on thought and energy. So
my wife is
that.
constantly cleansing the crystals. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. She's living with you. You need lots of selenite, right, because you don't have to cleanse it. So
There's lots of
Did you know that she was cleansing it specifically because of you?
I got a pretty good idea. There's a big sign on the door that says "Take responsibility for the energy you bring into this space," and I'm pretty sure it's directed at me. But they go out in the full moon, and then she's always burning the sage and smudging.
That's
and
good.
Yeah, they're good. They're good to go. I guess
there's water bottles too that hold crystals, but if you can hold crystals underneath and get a organite plate, get a big jug. If you have a house that you live in, you should have a proper glass jug that's maxed out, that's on an organite plate, because the energy's coming up and charging it. Crystal grid that thing. That's your sacred altar. You know, I'll take away your water for a week. Then how sacred does water become? Really sacred. So like, that's how sacred it is all the time. We just forget that. Yeah. And so, right, treat it that way, max it out. And the thing is too, just a simple thing. You know, when I'm teaching sports psychology, peak performance, Zen or whatever, one of the thoughts is just, you know, your intention. The more, wherever you focus, you're going to get more of it, right? So every time you go to water, and it's a sacred experience in whatever way, you connecting with yourself, you connecting with life, you connecting with spirit, you connecting with an intention. Well, you drink a lot of water every day, so it's these resets. And, you know, when I'm learning about Zen, you know, it took a while, like 5 years, but I'm getting in and I understand the concepts. But then things started to click more and more. I was like, okay, I got to be present 24 hours a day. How the fuck am I supposed to do that?
Yeah. How are you supposed to plan? Yeah.
It makes no sense. But one of the things I started to do was make myself triggers. And so water was one, eating was one, taking a piss was one, dressing was one, and the phone was another one. And every time that any of those things happened, and I added more along the way, whatever you do consistently, I'd come back to the present moment. I would just make sure. And over time, not that long, I became way, way more present. Yeah. And I still carry that level of skill now, and I can see, and then you see where people are, you know, and so I know for me the difference. And so now, you know, and you got to keep rechecking too, because social media got me, you know, a little bit ago, because my work is on there, but I was like, darn it, once you start going for work, then all of a sudden you're now just going, and I'm like, why did you just turn on Facebook? You know, no browsing, no, nothing. And so it is a monkey, your mind, and so just a really powerful practice you can use with water.
Yeah, that's great, and breath too.
Is that what
breath,
you do instead? So when you want to go on and scroll down the Twitter, you drink water instead.
You can use that, yeah.
I think he's using it as a trigger to be present in the moment. So whenever he's taking a piss or drinking a glass of water, you're becoming in the moment. And then the more you practice that, the easier it is, and then you start realizing your thoughts are going, and then you can actually recognize that you're not in the moment more often and bring yourself back to the moment. And
they're cues. They're cues. And it's also like a vibrational set, right? So if you're consistently negative or you're anxious, right? And every single time, and you have all these things, you know, if I'm eating, am I anxious? Am I taking a piss? And so it just gives you that moment to check. And so you can't stay in a funky vibration for too long, right? Without coming back. Like, cool, I'm in the present moment. Let me handle this. Boom. Yeah. So the more checks you had. And so I made myself a whole bunch of checks. And then after time, continuously training my mind way more in the moment. Now I can, you know, walk and drive, you know, sometimes I can drive for like 10 minutes and that's not that long, but like I'll drive for 10 minutes fully focused. I'm like, that was amazing. Sometimes I can't even do it for like a minute.
That's what I remember. That's the check I remember. I remember driving to work and not even remembering any of the trip, like just in my head the whole time. And now actually I can that's one of the triggers for me is driving and realizing that you're driving the whole time, you know, focusing on the driving. What?
So then
because then you're practicing to be in the moment.
So you can't do that while you're listening to a podcast.
Yeah, you can. Yeah. You can do both.
I would argue that you can't because you're listening to the past.
And then you're in
right?
What if it was live?
Focus, and we want people to listen to the podcast. So even if it's a good idea, I'm not even. It's
So, what are some other tricks for like the Zen athlete part is fascinating to me too, because you know I've played you talked about skateboarding and snowboarding, and I went from hockey, skating, and I transitioned to skiing more. It was a natural thing for me, keeping the legs apart and all that. And so, but playing hockey and realizing that, like, for me to score on a breakaway, it's better that I'm not thinking about it, right? But I do need a certain amount of skill to become to get that flow state. But it's really fascinating to me how, when something happens naturally without thinking about it, it kind of blows me away how you do something, and it's when you're in that flow state. So I've been in the flow state, but I'm not always there. But you have this confidence that like you're not even questioning whether you're going to succeed or not. You just know you're going to succeed. That's to me like what the flow state is like. So how do you train people to get into that state? Or is there tricks that you can do that, just like your trigger thing, where it can help me get in that state quicker?
Yeah. So there's lots of stuff you can do. And the flow state, like anything else, is earned. So there's the stages of learning is unconscious incompetence. You don't even know you can't do it, right?
Yeah.
The trick hasn't been invented, or you don't even know tennis exists. And then you're like, oh, tennis exists. And you're like, oh shit, I suck at tennis. Then there's, unconscious incompetence and conscious incompetence you're trying, then conscious competence, then unconscious competence. So, for me doing a backflip on my snowboard, the first time I did it, I really had to think about it. I was like, I want to do this. I'm consciously incompetent. I can train for it. Then I landed one and I was like, heck yeah. And I can do it again, but I'm really conscious of it. Right. Cause but over time, then I become unconsciously competent. Now I haven't snowboarded in a year. I could go on a snowboard and land a backflip. No problem, because it's like hardwired. And so that flow state is earned. Now that's the thing is, I was talking to a friend today how biohacking and flow state and and earthing, I go through the process of being really pissed off for a minute or two, or maybe a full day. And then I drop it, because like earthing is just going outside, flow state is like, oh, the flow state. And they hype it up, and you have these people talking about it with like very little expertise and experience in it. And they overhype it when really it's about a process of self-mastery that's earned. You know what I mean? You don't just doesn't happen like when a UFC fighter goes in there and he is in the flow state the whole fight. He's trained thousands of hours.
That's kind of what I was getting at. Yeah, with needing a certain amount of skill to be able to, to perform in that state. I mean, you can be in a flow, you can be in the present, but that doesn't mean you're performing at peak in a flow state.
Exactly. So there's tons of, then we get into what is the right stuff to do. And so for my philosophy with Zen Athlete, it's a guide to self-mastery. You don't need to be an athlete. If you're a human being and you want to be a better human being and you want to know how to achieve things in this world, get this book. It'll be as good or better than any personal development, law of attraction, magic sauce book that you can find, because it's the development of mind, body, spirit in the most effective practices that I've ever learned, studied, tried, experienced from trying to be a superhuman. And then it becomes simple, and then it's just actually applying those principles to your daily life and getting really clear. So, like to make it really clear, it's dedication, focus, meditation, visualization, belief, simulation, fitness and nutrition, goal setting. And then in the center is Zen. And the idea is to go through this process of life. So you could go Zen life or whatever. That's you being whole, happy, harmonious, full of self-love as you explore your capabilities as being a human. So it could be Zen golf. It could be Zen businessman. It could be Zen whatever. But you apply that strategy that a world-class athlete needs. It's a necessity. So to give you an example, one of my clients was a world-class motocross rider, and he fell on a front flip, and he gave me a call because I coached his homie, and he goes, hey, man, I heard you're good. I fell on a front flip. I want to land a front flip. I was like, sweet. So we had an hour coaching call, and his mental time is solid. I tweaked a few things. I was like, look, bro, you don't have to read my book. You don't have to do any of my courses. You don't have to do shit. All you have to do is visualize, and because he was at the stage, he had all the other blocks. Visualize an hour a day. The trick that you want is going to take you about a week, and you'll know you can land it. So 2 weeks later, he lands the front flip. 2 weeks after that, he lands the world first front flip heel clicker on a motorcycle. 2 weeks after that, he lands the world's first front flip Superman without practicing it one time. He went from going around in schools speaking to youth to landing it first try because he programmed it in our minds.
Yep.
And that's how powerful our minds are. So these are like the simple disciplines. So you take that out, and I was like, hey, man, it doesn't matter what you plug in, whatever you plug in, you're going to get, right? So then you start to get really clear on what is it in my life that's most valuable to me? What do I want to experience in this life? And you use the same fundamentals, boom, 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 boom. And you can isolate it. You can go back and look at your result and why you're not getting it. If you don't have enough energy, your diet's crap, you're not taking care of your body and your temple. Your thoughts are all crazy because you're not meditating, so you're not directing your focus, right? If you go to a training session with me and you're focused, it's going to be a different result if you're not focused. So do you believe you can do it? Do you not believe you can do it? Are you dedicated to doing it, or do you kind of want to do it? Are you going to give up in a week? So
yeah. So what was that? Can you go through the core bullets again? There was
yeah, totally. So dedication, focus, so your ability to focus, distraction programs and things like that, meditation. You have to learn that you're not your thoughts. It's a fundamental shift in consciousness for somebody who can come to the present moment on command and somebody who cannot.
Yeah.
It is a whole different consciousness. Visualization, this programs your mind. It literally creates, what are they calling it now? It's something, there's neuroplasticity is the word they're using, but it's creating the neural networks in your brain, the belief around it, and how you structure your belief. So really cool thing you can do is, like, if you want to be the best business guy, the best snowboarder, what do the best business guys or snowboarders believe about themselves? Make a list of that. And then you can then program that in with self-hypnosis and things like that. So then I show you how to make a self-hypnosis script, and it's not that hard, but how your unconscious mind works is through repetition and visualization.
Yeah.
So then you're like, cool, 3 weeks, I'm the best snowboarder on the planet, boom, 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 boom. Then it's going to trigger fitness and nutrition, goal setting. And, and then Zen is in the middle, and that's going through life with this mindset, that it's not when you're the world champion. It's not when the business is perfect. It's not when everything in your life is perfect and you have a picket fence. Your life is going to be messed up the whole time, probably. It's the journey.
It's the journey. Yeah.
It's the journey. And so how are you going through the journey? And so, when I work with a high level athlete on this, I want to make them a better human being so they convince the kids that this is the stuff that they should be learning. Because, you get me in a group of, 5-year-olds to 15-year-olds. It's like, you are perfect as you are. This is how you create anything that you want in your life. And this is how you do it in a peaceful way, knowing that you're the master and you can handle any situation. And sport and martial arts just gives you a catalyst to learn those skills, right? Because otherwise you have no reason to, cultivate this kind of skill set, but anybody can apply it.
Wow, that's really, really interesting.
Well, that's kind of the same thing as, like, it reminds me of affirmations. And
I was thinking that too, yeah.
Sort of that same visualization. And I guess it's kind of, I would have thought that you had to do more than to just be able to visualize. My argument on the theory of attraction has always been that you needed
the law of attraction.
Or the law of attraction, sorry. Is that involves a lot of, like,
to you it's just a theory of it
and doing it, but
well, it reminds me of the lucid dreaming thing, where if people can train themselves in their dreams, it's the same thing. Like, your body is physically doing it. Your body's going through.
It's interesting to think that you could program it without that.
Yeah,
gives me some hope.
Yeah.
Well, do both, though. The law of attraction thing. One of my mentors, he wrote the book, The Law of Attraction, and there's a few of them. The theory, yeah. And and his is NLP based, all process based.
Yeah.
So absolutely action. Action is the mother.
Yeah.
Do action, right? If there's no now, but this is a way to accelerate that process. But if you think about it, with Brody Carmichael, who did the world's first front flip Superman, we don't get the luxury of 2 times.
Yeah.
So we use this magic shit so we don't break our bodies in half and die. And so then we know it's real because we have a catalyst that we don't want to kill ourselves.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, shit. What if I imagined my ideal life, I visualized the shit out of it, and I work my ass off?
Yeah, yeah.
That's how simple it is. Get really clear on what you actually want from your heart. visualize that and feel it every day. Jim Carrey said it, and it's like every well-known person has said it. And like, this is how I did it. I visualized me doing this, blah, blah, blah. Conor McGregor said it. Everybody who's done it says it. I visualize it nonstop. I could feel it. And I worked my ass off. So we want that growth. You know what I mean? I want a house. This is what it's going to look like. Yeah. Now I make the plans. Now I start digging the hole, whatever, when we had to do it back in the day and we have contractors. Same process, but people are like you said, they fall in this trap of, okay, I'm going to go home, I'll make a vision board, and boom, we got it all. Doesn't work like that.
I feel like the physical action gives you some context for visualizing it. Like if you've done, some skiing or some dirt bike riding or whatever you're building or whatever, and you have some sort of physical feeling of it, then it's easier to probably visualize it than making something up that you haven't done, But
like me just visualizing myself doing a backflip and then just landing on my back because I have no agility.
Yeah, exactly. So how
but
do you?
I could visualize myself maybe doing something different.
Yeah. So how do you recommend? I mean, this might seem like it's kind of a silly question in a way, but I've been off track for a few weeks. Like I was going through a pretty good phase for a few years. There are lots of yoga and meditation. I mean, I still meditate now and then quite a bit for that, but diet's off, exercise is off, like, and I know I should be just figure out what I want, visualize it and all that stuff. But do you have any tricks to get somebody back on track?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. The first thing that I say to anything like that is like, always be nice to yourself. We're human. It's fucking hard being human a lot of the time. Yeah. So step one, last week I was bummed out for like 2 weeks there, coming back from
the high of Egypt.
Yeah, I had Burning Man and everything, and then I had to sort out life stuff. You know what I mean? I'm really doing my passionate, but I have holes too. I'm like, oh my God. Should have sorted that out. Now I'm problem solving and I'm stressed. I'm like, oh shit. And so, so first step is to be compassionate with yourself, and then just simply look at what's the easiest action you can take to get the result you want, and what's the most enjoyable thing you want to do. So it's like, okay, you assess like I'm out of whack. What is out of whack? Write that down. What do I feel is really out of whack? It's this. Cool. What do I want? I want to feel like I'm a little bit more aligned. What would make me feel that way? If I just did some physical activity tomorrow, just a jog, and then boom, you do that one action to set the energy in motion. Because sometimes we're like, it's the vegan diet and it's this perfect thing, and then it's yoga at 2, and then and everything is cool and no life happens. It's like, cool, just do the one thing because life happened, and so you start to push that energy back, and it's the recognition is the first thing. Because we go through phases, right? And that's why even UFC fighters, Olympic fighters, athletes, they need to take a break because it's intense trying to be perfect and doing it. A lot of people I know about in diet realm, right? It's like vegan is the way and this and that, and I'm all for ethical, awareness of food and not killing animals. I was a vegetarian for a long time. Now I've been eating meat a little bit, and now I'm going to probably go back to vegetarian, but it's conscious consumption. But so many vegans that I know went back to eating meat, and they only did it for 3 years, some of them 6 years. I know somebody who was like vegan for like 10 years and then has been eating meat for, another 10. So it's just like their level of perfection was vegan for that time, and that's cool, but now it's different, and that's okay too. Do you know what I mean? It's like stuff changes just consistently. If you feel an integrity, you're doing cool, you're doing okay. And if you feel out of integrity, just question that gently within yourself, and then start making actions to put yourself back in integrity.
Well, I've really noticed through some stress over the last few weeks, just eating emotional eating, like just not giving a fuck anymore about the diet. Like I was trying to, cut out wheat and all that. Now it's just my diet's the shit and my exercise off. And I'm actually feeling like normally I can't really feel much no matter what I eat or how much exercise I get. But now I'm feeling like a cognitive decline from my diet and lack of exercise. Like I'm actually feeling like my memory's off, my cognition's off, which is interesting. What?
Lack of sleep.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting to go through a phase of a few weeks and actually feel the effects, because rarely can I feel that.
Well, you know what a really good one is? I was actually going to say, if you commit to it, it's just a 2-day fast. If you've ever done one.
Yeah, I can't get past 20. I can't get past like 28 hours or so, 24 hours.
Dude,
so
it's not even that hard.
I know,
it's
but
not even that
it's
hard.
just,
You just commit.
When I get to like 24 hours, it's just like, yeah.
It resets. Do it.
No water
do it
either?
at dinner time.
No, water as well, right?
Do it at dinner time at like 6 p.m. Have your last meal.
Yeah.
And literally every time I've done it, it hasn't been the hunger that's bugged me.
No.
It's my mind consistently wanting me to go eat.
Exactly. It's the eating out of boredom thing. The hunger goes away after an hour or so, or you have a little glass of water. And
you're allowed to have water?
Yeah.
It's such a trip on the mind. It's you're always just going for that meal, and then you're like, okay, what am I going to do for the next hour? I'm not cooking a meal, but I should be eating. It's the weirdest fucking feeling.
I'll do that without water.
Yeah.
2 days too.
No, you're talking water, right? You can still have water, Matt, or are you talking like a full? Are you talking a dry fast?
This is what's been messing me up. Is this girl that I met in Egypt? She says she does an 11-day no food, no water.
Wow.
Like 2 or 3 times a year, and I was like, no water too? I was like, don't you die?
Wait,
She's like,
what?
no. I was like, okay, but what?
I just breathe in the sun.
Not like because isn't it supposed to be 6 days? Like what is it? Like how long
3
are you
days.
supposed to last?
Yeah, 3 days. Bear Grylls says 3 days. He's drinking pee after 2 days.
Right.
No, come on.
Yeah.
But is he in the sun? Is he breathing in the sun like in both areas?
No, he's just in the desert.
Yeah. So that's what she
Grylls.
told me because I was like 11 days. I was like, I can't do that. She's like, you can do it. And I was like, oh my God. And that's the thing about pushing your limits, right? And that's why I like the test. Like the monks, when I was in China, they pushed me way farther than I would push myself. And so that's why going to those environments, being around those people, doing it, switch something up in your environment, right?
Yeah.
Just, make yourself accountable in some way,
Yeah.
Just do something, right? To make one action,
Yeah.
because even if you get to the gym and eat the sandwich, then at least you've done one action.
Yeah.
I could see that though, because that's probably an average person can do 3 days.
Yeah.
But you see like those people that can hold their breath when they go looking for oysters and stuff like that can do it for like 3 or 4 or 5 times as long as I can.
Yeah.
So I got like maybe a minute and a half.
I heard a qigong master on Ben Greenfield, and he talked about his training with it's like right out of a movie script. It's unbelievable, this guy. And he went on 100-day when he was a teenager. He went on a 100-day water fast, and it just activated chi and everything. It was crazy. And he was solitary in a room, like intense training. And I mean, this guy has just got the superpowers now. It's unbelievable.
That's the idea. Well, that's the idea. That's what he's actually doing, is activating the energy body. Because we have soon, I've heard this, can't remember where I heard it, but I totally dig it. They're going to prove that we have the energy body, which we pretty much already have. But that's like your spirit. That's what you astral project with. That's what, we're supposed to take memory through death. Yeah. So when you deplete the body, and we're like, we're the body, I am, I say, if you cut off your hand, you're not your hand. You cut off your arm, you're not your arm. You're still you. Well, you're not your body, then what are you? And then you start to think, okay, am I my consciousness? That keeps changing. So then, shit. Then I stop the mind, and then I become nothing and everything. And like, now you're in this whole thing. What the fuck am I? And but doing stuff like that activates this energy body like a Super Saiyan. And so I've had blips of this in China, in different spots, meditation. I spent 4 months in koala habitat, like basically meditating and doing martial arts for a long time. And just there would be these activation spots, but depriving the body and pushing the body. And that's what they're doing in China, is they push your body so you basically have to leave it, and you're operating just on energy. And then you're like, oh, and then the body just, you feel this thing, and you're like, what? And it's unmistakable. It's unmistakable. And you're like, okay, I am not just the meat sack. But then life goes on, and you begin to be fooled that you're the meat sack again, and you got to remember.
Like mushrooms.
Yeah, that is probably, that's psychedelics are probably a way into that as well.
Yes, 100%. Psychedelics. So I've been, with that, because I talk about it a lot on my podcast, just responsible use, because people just don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Have a guide. You're opening portals. This isn't not a game. You know what I mean? Go down the route with respect in nature with a shaman, and it can really do powerful things for your consciousness. But you're opening up the dimensions of light and dark. They both exist. And so you better know what you're doing. And so I recommend that. And if you go with the side of the light with somebody who knows what they're doing with a real soul-seeking initiative, they could be extremely powerful tools for upgrading your consciousness very quickly and letting go of all these limiting beliefs, thoughts, traumas. It opens the doorway for you to do more work, to commit to the path, because, again, it's putting in the work. It's the integration of the medicine. You know, some people will hide behind ayahuasca. I've seen that now. It's like, I love ayahuasca. I've done it a bunch of times, but like, oh, I've done ayahuasca. I'm like enlightened now. I'm like, really? Because you didn't know shit for like 38 years, but now all of a sudden you've done ayahuasca and you just know, and you're just a yogi. You're like the new Krishnamurti. Damn, I did it too, but
it's quite a shortcut.
We had different effects.
Yeah.
I'm still having to put in the work that I put in before the medicine that I'm still putting in.
Well, you weren't paying attention.
I totally missed the boat.
So talk more about your podcast before we forget about that and lose the chance.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, man. Well, the podcast, it started because I just had really interesting friends, and I kept going to really interesting places and wanting to share the experiences.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I just got to start having chats with my friends. And so started that, and then I was like, okay, I'm doing this. And I just set the intention to interview the most conscious, awakened, high vibrational, embodied people of service to humanity, share their wisdom and stories. And I just hold that intent. And so I've had some really wild guests, really grounded guests, really powerful guests, everything in between. And I'm seeking the people that are really putting out some, interesting ideas and thoughts. And because we've kind of like born like this or in this space, I can see who is full of shit and who's not. And so if you're like, I talk to angels, I'm like, do you? And I'll talk to you like, this son of a bitch can talk to angels. God damn. Right? I was like, I can tell that. I'm like, there's a guy, you should have him on your show. His name's Garnet Schulhauser.
Twice.
Had him on twice.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Right? From Calgary. I try to explain him to people. He's like our version of a redneck. All of a sudden seeing his spirit guide in Calgary.
Exactly.
Like he's not kidding. He's got a mustache. He's not kidding. And it's so wonderful, That's what the universe does. Like, we're going to pick this guy. He's like, damn it.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's what amazes me is we were talking before. I don't know if we said this on the show or not. Is like I was looking into your work and all that, and finding out you're into this, really fitness and high end athletes and the Zen part of it. And then I started listening to your show and look at all the things that overlap between us. And I'm surprised when I started looking into health and wellness and biohacking and all this stuff that there's really this big community that overlaps with ours, because it's all non-mainstream, right? It's all like the kind of like the leading edge science and the stuff that's not accepted by the mainstream yet. And it's spirituality at its finest, which is kind of mind blowing to me. So, I really understand what you're doing with your podcast there, and I think it's just absolutely amazing.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. Yeah, man. Biohacking, as I was saying, and these things of like peak performance and flow, that's how to reach the mainstream to pull them into the real stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
When I'm working with, let's say, LeBron James or the biggest athletes in the world, I could give a shit if they fucking win another championship. I want to know if they're okay and decent human beings. And they'll never be 100% fulfilled if they don't have a purpose in their life beyond their sport, because winning a championship is not fulfillment. Now, when we get to who they really are and how they really want to contribute, they're going to be 100% fulfilled, stoked on life, and a better athlete because their well-being isn't on the line. And we can teach all kids around the world that philosophy. And that's what spirituality essentially is. I say it's just not being an asshole and figuring out who you are, going through your own stuff, because what is important in life, what is really important to you in life. And we are sold bullshit and distractions, and you have to flip the mirror. And the more people flip the mirror and they just do their best to be a conscious human being in the sense of just not going around just trying to be an asshole. Just like, I'm having a really bad day. Sorry, man, I'm not trying to be an ass or whatever. Just being
accountable.
Human. Being accountable, being authentic, being, full of integrity. But then as you clean up your own stuff, your life automatically gets better. And the more of us that can be real human beings without these facades and masks and nonsense, we can start to work together and change the world. And one of the hashtags I always use and I love is Team Earth. Can you just imagine if Team USA and Canada and Russia and Switzerland and Korea and China, all the scientists, engineers, mathematicians, astrophysicists, everybody worked together for the betterment of humanity, how fast we would shift this earth.
Yeah.
Right? And that's why the whole alien ET thing is important, because when I first got into it, one of the speakers, and I can't remember who it was, I think Nassim was on the panel, but he said, if we knew that there was other races out there, our consciousness would expand instantly, but we would know that Earth is our home.
Exactly.
And we're not treating it like our home, and we're not treating our brothers and sisters like brothers and sisters. We're treating each other like enemies, and that's not true. That's sold. And so, that spirituality is that way home. And as we heal ourselves, we heal the planet, we heal our communities, we heal each other. I'll tell you one really messed up story before we go, because it's really interesting.
Yeah, but, for sure.
At the end of Burning Man, we were driving back, and it's a long haul. I was going to Arizona with my buddy, and we stopped for some food and got it. And there's this puppy outside of the store. So I love puppies, man. I love dogs. So I go over to check out this little guy and give him an ear scratch. And this drunk guy comes out of the store. And I could see that this dog was really afraid, And so he walks up and he stumbles and he looks at me and he's like, "This dog's a piece of shit." And I could tell. And so I'm thinking in my mind, I was like, fuck. I was like, I was like, man, do I have to defend this dog and like take him away from this guy? Like, how do I don't want this dog to go home and get beaten by this guy. He's obviously terrified of him. Like, shit, this isn't good. And I was like, what? I was like, it's just a dog, man. I was like, can't be a piece of shit. And he's like, you want him? And then instantly I knew, I was like, this is going. I was like, uh-oh. So he's like, you want him? I was like, well, I'd love to take him. I'm from Canada, man. I was like, you want him? And then I was like, I'm just saying, dude, like, if he's a piece of shit, like, maybe you could just give him away. Something like that, And he's just, and then he said something else, and then he starts to clench his fist. And I was like, look, man, I don't know. I'm just saying, like, he seems like a sweet dog. Maybe you could just find a home for him. I'd take him if I could. Like, I didn't mean anything. And he just looks at me and he just goes, "I'm a piece of shit." I was like, what? He's like, "I'm a piece of shit." I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, "I killed my daughter." I was like, what? He's like, how? And I was like, drinking and driving? And I just kind of intuited that because he was drunk and he probably didn't murder his daughter with a gun. And he just shakes his head. And I just said, "Oh my God, can I give you a hug?" And he just didn't even know what to do. And I was like, please let me give you a hug. I would love to give you a hug. And I just give him this huge hug. And this guy just starts crying. And, and then basically we talked for 30 minutes. And I told him, I gave him my number. I said, "I'm in Canada. If I can help him, he's not alone. I know you can't see any way out of this." But he had been in jail for 8 years. And it was the fucking anniversary of his daughter's death, and he was drinking. And 2 of his friends called. I answered the phone with his friends. Obviously, you want to drown that shit out. I can't imagine how traumatizing that is. But that, to me, is what spirituality is. It's literally just doing your best to be a good human being, especially when it's a messed up situation. That's when you practice it. You know what I mean? It's not when someone says, "Hi, you're the best, and I love you." It's like, thanks. It's like, "Hey, honk honk, you're an ass," and then you don't flip the bird and chuck a Coke can at him. It's just calm down.
Okay, buddy, I get it.
Yeah, so it just shows you that awareness. You never know what's going on. Like, how the heck could I have possibly known it was the anniversary of his daughter's death? and how much that could have helped just being as kind as I could have in that situation. So a little bit more kindness towards ourselves, a little bit more kindness towards our communities, a little bit more kindness and compassion for things we don't understand. And that's how we change the world, man. And we can do that within a generation too, when this just becomes normal thinking. And this isn't weird or strange or spiritual. It's just human. And we operate on that fundamental.
Yeah. Just being present for the guy, even just listening to him. You know, just being there and not just ignoring him and, you know, walking away. Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
And the other thing I wanted to say there is it's amazing with the probably the guests that you've had on. I bet you find the same thing with these people that you're talking about, high vibration people and that are at service to humanity. And I bet you know, a lot of these people might seem out there and crazy to people, but I bet you they're the most grounded people that you meet. That's like, it's one of the conundrums I find that, you know, they're probably accountable and looking at themselves and very grounded, and yet they're out there. That might seem like they're out there crazy to people, you know.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure it's Terrence McKenna that said there's a certain amount of insanity it takes to live in an insane world, or to be in an individual in an insane world. You guys know that quote?
Yeah.
Something along those lines.
Yeah,
and it's true though, because it's conditioning, and that was one of the big things I studied was persuasion and conditioning and consciousness, and hypnosis. I know all types of hypnosis. It's the same shit, but the mind can be hypnotized and boxed, and that's what our education did. That's what our media does. That's what like TV shows do, and that's why people are stuck in this, because they believe it and they don't know how to get out of it. They don't know how to act another way. And so the people who got out, they got out by going in. They went backwards and they figured out, oh, this is what I've been sold is actually horseshit. And so for the people to accept that, they have to accept that what they believed is not true. And so once your neural net and NLP gets so big, it's really hard to let that go. Same with the religious one. You know, I have a family that's religious, and, a good friend of mine that I grew up with. And I was like, dude, you know, like he said something about the Hebrews building the pyramid. I'm like, big miss. And like we opened it up. I was like, bro, you're an adult now, man. I was like, if anything that brings you closer to what you feel is a connection to God, awesome. I am really happy for that. But if you do a little bit of independent research, really open your eye, really want to take a look at what God is, you know, you're going to find him. But, you know, this story, there's a lot of holes in this story, dude. And you have the information at your hands now to look at, you know, and so that's it. Right. But for him to let that go, he had the most, his family was the most intense. And that's why. And I was like, and that's what I said to him. I was like, don't you think that that's odd that your family was the most religious and you're the only one of all of our friends that still go to church? It's like, you don't see a correlation there, you know? And so all these spiritual people that I've podcast, not one of them has been religious. And not saying you can't be religious and spiritual and at a high vibe. It's just rare because, you know, once you put a monopoly on God, that's some dangerous stuff. Yep. You know, once my way is the only way, it's not God is love, God is source, God is kindness, God is, you know, and you don't need to do nature, baby. You don't need to do 20 Hail Marys or this or that. You need to find him or her or it in your own way and live that, you know, and that book alone. So, you know, it gets touchy when you get into the religious part, but I would love to see a surge in real spirituality.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
and that's what we need. We need an upgrade in that.
We were calling it the Church of Experience, and I feel like that's what you're a part of, you know, direct experience. What are you giving me that look for?
Church of Experience.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty culty.
No,
sounds
man.
Pretty culty, doesn't it?
It's all culty. It's all cult.
So I'll, yeah, man, this has been a fantastic chat. I'm really, really excited about it. And we'll put links to all your stuff in the show notes as well, of course. And, man, we'd love to do this again sometime.
Yeah, boys, I really appreciate that. It kind of flowed and you guys let me yammer. So it's nice to be on the other side of the mic, and appreciate you guys for what you're doing to put out the work. And I like the way that you guys do it. It's funny.
Right on. No problem, buddy. Yeah.
I'm excited to get to do a lot more episodes and just listen to you guys. Just
sweet.
Do your thing, man. It's wonderful. Man. Keep it up.
Right on. Well, if you're ever in Calgary, drop by and we'll do it. It's fun to have people right in the studio with us. So it's a rare thing. Only a couple times a year we can do it, but you know.
Yeah, I'm game. Well, I actually today realized I need to upgrade my license, and mine's still in Calgary. I travel all over the world, including all over Canada, so who knows if I'm in
Yeah.
Calgary or not. So I'm going to have to make a pit stop just for that.
For
I don't
sure,
think I
buddy.
can get
Yeah,
on the
let us
phone,
know.
so
Absolutely.
Right on.
Open invitation.
that'll make it a reason to stop by.
Yeah, right on. All right, buddy. Thanks a
Okay,
lot,
take
Matt.
care, fellas.
Take
Thanks
care.
so much.
Okay. Ciao.
See ya.
Peace.
And that was a chat with Matt Belair. It was a fun one. What'd you think, buddy?
Yeah, that was fantastic. One of my favorites. As you know, that would have been.
As I know.
Yep. Yeah, it was great, and I just it's inspiring. I think it's what I needed to get off my little my little rut. Get out of my rut.
Your little grumpy rut.
Yeah,
Grumpy Graham and his grumpy rut.
yeah. Be the authentic person I need to be. Get out of this thing.
That's good advice for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting. Are we still on?
We're
the
still
YouTube
live on
here?
YouTube to
Yeah.
wrap it up. Big thanks to everyone for joining the live feed. Big thanks to Matt for coming
Was
on
there
the show.
anybody in there at all, or how was it? Was there any comments?
15 or 20 people in there, yeah.
Cool.
Big thanks to Matt for coming on the show. Big thanks to you guys for listening. Of course, check out grimerica.ca/support, guys. Sign up for monthly today if you can. Help us keep the show ad-free, sponsor-free, keep the heat on.
All these extra episodes coming
All
out.
these extra episodes are giving you guys, and you're going to get even more episodes. What are you going to do with all that, Grimerica? It all starts by signing up today. grimerica.ca/support. Do a one-time donation, guys. That's swell, too. And, of course, we understand if you can't afford to support the show financially, that's fine, too. You can do all the shit in the show notes. Go in the show notes. You review the show, rate the show, share the show, spam the show.
Email Graham. Spam
Graham.
Graham, not the show. Spam Graham.
Spam
Spam
Graham.
the show.
Spam Graham. You are the show.
GRAHAM at grimerica.com.
At grimerica.com. Do all that stuff, and that counts, too.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah. All
was a
right.
good
Big
one.
thanks to Matt. Big thanks to you guys. All right, guys. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week. All right, guys. I'm going to shut down the video feed. We'll be back in probably like 10 minutes with Matheson, 10, 15 minutes.